go.
With the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Draft Show. We are back with our top 10s. Adam, we are talking about our top 10 running backs for the 2025 NFL Draft. Last year, really good for wide receivers. Not many running backs. The complete flip this year. Not many wide receivers. Loads of running backs. There's a lot of guys on our top 10 that probably would have been the number one prospect in last year's draft for the running backs. One of the guys in this, I did have at number one in last year before he decided to return. But yeah, lots to get excited about the 10 running backs. We've got 10 on this list. I could have moved this list to 15 and still easily have picked people I liked. So yeah, solid running back class this year.
Yeah, I mean, more than solid. Really good. And it's, I mean, if you want a running back in fantasy, you're going to be happy. So, you know, that's one way of looking at it. But yeah, I mean, we've got some really good talent here. And it's not just, I mean, the top guys are really good. But you know, as you were saying, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, keep going down the list. They're still very good running backs for your teams. And as you say, a few guys that didn't even make it onto this top 10 that are just, you know, still going to do really well in the NFL as well. So it's quite exciting for running backs this year. I must admit, when you were saying that about last year, I can't remember who the main guys were.
Jonathan Brooks.
Yes, Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson.
Braylon
Bucky
Allen.
Irvin, obviously.
Bucky
I know he wasn't the main guy, but he was kind of, yeah. Not a lot happened, did it? Really?
Out of all of them, Bucky Irving is the only one of. We didn't have Tyron Tracy in our top 10.
No.
But outside of that, Bucky Irving's the only one who really made a bit of a splash in the NFL. All the rest kind of backups. We haven't seen Jonathan Brooks yet, unfortunately, but all the rest have been backups and haven't had much time on the field. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of guys in this one that I think they're going to be injected straight into the teams, even if they're in committee backfields, and they're going to be used early in their careers. So yeah, I think would you agree? There's a few guys in this that would be, you'd have at number one over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely 3. Actually,
maybe
thinking about it,
5.
Probably 5. Yeah, I'd probably say 5 are better than what, because Jonathan Brooks was good, but there was obviously with the injury that he had at Texas was the concern, wasn't it? And Trey Benson was okay, but I think 5. I'm going to go 5.
Yeah, I think 5 is a good number for it.
Yeah. So yeah, very good class.
Well, let's get straight into it then. At number 10, we've got 2 10s, and there's a no number 8 because someone decided to return back to college after I'd done the graphics. So yeah, we'll get. It's
all right. We can have a 9A and a 9B.
10A and 10B and a 9. And
okay, we can have a 10A and 10B, but that's a bit of an odd one. But yeah, we can do that.
At number 10 is one of your favorite guys. You were really high on him when he was at the Beavers, and then he moved to the Hurricanes. It's Damien Martinez, as we said, at Miami Hurricanes, 21 years old, 5'11", 226 pounds. Last year had over 1,000 yards. Considering he was in a committee backfield, over 1,000 yards is great. 10 touchdowns, 204 yards reception. As he's your guy, Adam, tell me all about him, why you love him, why he's so good. Why is it number 10?
We have got a big, beefy boy here. He's great. Excellent contact balance. Superb. He just doesn't go down because of his size. It's brilliant. He's got power. He's patient. He accelerates very quickly for someone of his size. He can handle heavy workloads. Really, really good for Miami this year with lots of heavy workloads. Really good ball security. That was another thing. That's quite an important one, obviously, for the running backs. Really good ball security. Very good blocker as well. That's something that I think you might hear for a lot of these guys as their negatives, but Martinez was not. He's a really good blocker. We're kind of talking Derrick Henry kind of size here. I mean, it may be a little bit
more taller, isn't he?
Yeah, taller, but I mean, like, I'm talking weight and sort of like muscle mass. He's kind of like that sort of size. And look, I mean, there's a reason he's number 10. He does lack top speed. He doesn't have that. And to be honest, there hasn't been much in the receiving game from him, but that's because he hasn't been asked to do it. Aside from that, I think he's going to be a really solid running back for a long time. I've got him as third round.
It's higher than me.
Yeah, I think it's early. I think he's third round talent. I think he'll probably go fourth, but I think he's third round. He reminds me of Brian Robinson a little bit, and I think that he has the ability to be like that. And yeah, the reason I like him is I just think he's solid, and I think he's going to do a really good job for many, many years. And although we came out and said that there's like 15 or so really good running backs, I do actually think there is a limit to the amount of guys that I feel like could be there for many, many years. But because he's got the size behind him, I just feel like he's got the ability to do that. And yeah, I just think he's a really big, strong guy who is going to be very, very difficult to bring down.
Yeah, he's got a track background, so he's going to be a really good athlete. I thought he had good speed. I thought he had good long speed as well. I think once he breaks through, the speed is there. He's not got like the high end like some of the guys later on have got it, but it's long speed there. Vision very good. Patience very, very good. I do think he's going to be used as an early down back in the NFL once he gets in there. I think that's his forte. As I said, he was in a committee in that backfield because there was a guy there for catching, so he has no real pass catching upside. And I think he wasn't used because when he was used for trying to catch the ball, he got an 11% drop rate. So probably best to leave him out of that. And I think that's what's going to drop him down below everybody else, because that he hasn't got that upside. And I think you do need to have somewhat of the ability to catch the ball and play in that kind of scheme as well. And I felt like he didn't really have that top end stop speed as well. I think it's just good speed, good long speed, good vision, good patience, early down back, as you said. I think that does work. I think you can work in a complementary backfield. You'll hear this name loads throughout this. David Montgomery works those early down backs really, really well, and just got under the contract on a team that's got an elite running back on that team as well. So there's definitely position. He would complement a few other people in this top 10 that we've got. So yeah, really, really nice prospect. I've got him as a 4th round pick, but why not in the 3rd? There's lots of upside if you need a guy like this. And I think there is teams that do need a guy like this. I think I do like Roschon Johnson, but I think he would suit well at Chicago, complementing Swift if he stays there. So I think that would be quite a nice 1-2 combination there. So definitely a position for him. Really nice back, and I'm glad we've got him in at number 10.
Yeah, I think the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs setup is something that we might end up seeing quite a lot more in the NFL as well, which is why it works for someone like Martinez coming out now. So I feel like he's going to get himself a good opportunity, and that there will be that sort of like, the whole Sonic and Knuckles thing that they have. I think you're going to see teams try and match that a little bit.
Well, the New York Giants, I remember we used to have Thunder and Lightning.
Well, you can have Thunder and Lightning as well if you like.
There's going to be lots of different combinations of these new names coming out, so it's going to be interesting to see what we get. Number nine, we have got. Oh, hello, we've got no one at the minute because it's not on the right way. There you go. Number 9, that's number 10. Is Jordan James from Oregon, 20 years of age, 5'10", 210 pounds. Last year had 1,267 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 209 receiving yards. Again, you're going to hear a lot of buzzwords when you talk about these guys. Vision, patience, acceleration. I think he ticks all those boxes. There's a few other things I've got on my list, but Adam, do you think this guy's too small? I think that's been a reason that he's moved further down, because his production was great at Oregon and he looked good and looked to manage to handle the workload he was given as well. So what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have got he's probably one of his main weaknesses is that he just doesn't have the frame for it. He's not a bell cow back. He's not going to be. There are durability concerns because of his size and his height as well. So that it is an issue for him. I don't think he's not incredibly small. So it's like he's reasonably okay. But I do feel like if you want a 3 down back, this isn't him sort of thing. But like I say, I feel like most NFL teams are going to move away from that now because of what you've seen with the Lions and teams like that. I also don't think he's particularly great in pass protection. I think he's pretty raw in that. He hasn't done a lot of that. And in the passing game,
you're not going to ask 5'10", 210.
No. I mean that's true, but it's one of them things where it's like, you've got they kind of need to be able to do something in it. Mm-hmm. You've got to offer some sort of protection, and it's like there isn't really anything. I also think he needs to probably expand his route tree when it comes to the passing game, but I think that's something that obviously can be coached, and that's not a problem. But yeah, I mean, like you say, I think he's agile. I think he's twitchy. I actually think he's really good in short yardage situations on the goal line. That's something that he maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think he is very good at that. He's not, it's not just a guy who's about speed. I mean, he has an explosive first step and he accelerates really well. But he is like short yardage as well. He can do that. So there is potential there. I have him 3rd round. And I comped him to Jerome Ford.
That's a fair comp. That's a really good comp, actually. Quite like that one.
My God, I've shocked him. That's unbelievable.
I was struggling for a comp because it's really hard, because most 5'10", 210 backs, they're usually saying great hands, good getting the ball, good on the outside, great speed. But you're right, this guy was used in short yardage plays and goal line plays, which you wouldn't expect so much for someone of his stature. So the fact that he was so good at that and for any short yardage, he was the go-to guy. For their team. So yeah, it's hard to find a comp, and I think Jerome Ford fits quite well. I think Jerome Ford's a bit thicker, isn't he, than what we've got here, but that kind of works well as a comp.
My one concern for him is I think he's good at everything, but he's not amazing at anything. And I feel like that. I feel to a certain degree that's why Jerome Ford kind of fits a little bit. And so I think that he will be able to have a career, but I just don't think he's going to really excel and fly fly off, and that's probably why we've got him where we've got him.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll move on to number 8, which is number 9, which is Cam Scatterboo, which I'm probably going to say, if we do get lots of comments, us having him this low at number 8 on our list is going to be probably one that we get. There's a lot of people that have got him. I've seen him as high as number 3 and as low as number 10. There doesn't seem to be anyone who can settle on what Cam Scatterboo is going to be in the NFL, because if you go and watch his tape for Arizona, then Arizona State, then you're going to see a guy that, force missed tackles, absolutely great. Usage, used a load. I think his usage, the only guy that's been used in the NFL, in the college more than him, were the likes of Saquon and Travis Etienne. 23 years old, 5'11", 215 pounds. So again, on the smaller side for a guy, but the guy looks like a little boulder rock there. Rushing 1,711, 21 touchdowns, 605 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Hasn't got top end speed. He's not shifty. The buzzwords aren't quite there. But he has got rushing upside, receiving upside. Loves to run into players, bounces off of players. That's where the forced missed tackles come in. Great to watch. Just really, really good to watch. But you said Jordan James wasn't really elite at anything. I don't think this guy is particularly elite at anything, but just production is off the charts. Really, really good film. He played well in the playoffs, played against big teams. There's not a lot not to like about him, other than the fact he doesn't have those buzzwords and boxes ticked. What's your thoughts?
I think he is elite at one thing. He's elite at being a very angry man. He will run through people
on purpose,
then reverse, and then try and reverse back and run through them again just for a laugh. He wants the contact desperately. He loves it, and he's got the contact balance as well in order to be able to do it. So he's got great contact balance, really good hands when it comes to catching the ball. Ball security is another issue that we'll talk about in a minute. I think he's got really good footwork, good vision as well, which is nice to see. Really reliable in short yard and goal line. He's got lots of positives, as you said. Ball security is a problem. 4 fumbles this season, 10 fumbles in 3 seasons. So it hasn't really improved. The long speed, as you said, isn't really there. I think he overdoes the jump cuts a little bit, I have to say. He sort of just doesn't really need to do that. You mentioned about the workload, 521 snaps in 2 seasons. That's a hell of a lot. And it really depends how you want to look at it. You can come out and say that means that he's experienced, or you can come out and say that means that he's basically been used too much. And I think when it comes to running backs, there is just a general sort of, there's a limit to how much you're going to get from the majority of running backs. So I would argue that's a bit of a negative that he's been used that much. Aside from joking about the fact that he wants to run through people all the time, I think you're probably right about the fact that he's not really elite at anything specifically, but he just is an angry runner.
Plays hard.
And Kyle Brandt's gonna love him. So that's what you're dealing with, and it's almost like his own personal health is irrelevant, and that's just what you're dealing with. I think he's late second myself. I found him very difficult to have a comp for. I got a couple of guys. I think he's a bit built like Zach Charbonnet. But I also had James Conner as well, because I think James Conner can be a bit of an angry runner at times, sort of like low-key angry runner. So those were the two that I had for him. But yeah, probably more Charbonnet just from his size. But yeah, late second, I reckon. And I think he'll do well because he'll just put the effort in.
I think he's got the skill set, nowhere near as good as this guy or elite as this guy. But I think he's got the skill set of CMC as what we're looking at, but it's not there.
Could you
But
not have told me that whilst I wasn't drinking?
Well, but I've got a feeling he's probably going to be more Carl Juszczyk.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to comp, isn't it? Because he is good at everything he does, just not elite. But Carl Juszczyk, great runner, good with his hands.
Yeah.
So I think
just
he's
about
leaving.
30 pounds less than Kyle Juszczyk.
I think he's leaving the 49ers. He's going to be a cap casualty, isn't he, at the next year? So Cam Scatterboo to the 49ers makes sense.
Could well be.
That's where I've got him. Yeah, I think, as I said, there's people that have got him really, really high on him and love him, and there's people that aren't sure what to do with him. I think we're kind of in that boat as well. But I think someone's going to love him and take a punt on him. So third round, I think, is probably where he's going to go as well.
Yeah.
We move on to number 7, another controversial one in our list. And that is Ollie Gordon the second from Oklahoma State, 21 years old, 6'2", 225 pounds, 880 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, 179 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Now, he's a guy for me that you need to go and watch the tape from the year before. You have to go and watch his sophomore year as well, because 2024 wasn't great. They had one of the worst run blocking O-lines in college football for that year. Ollie Gordon played the full season a bit banged up, not fully fit. I think through that, he played with a little bit less violence than I saw the year prior. But, he plays big. His vision's good. He's the dope. What would say his vision's good. He runs well into the line. He was a dope walker, a winner. Now, if I tell you the previous winners of this award, last year was Genty. The year prior was Ollie Gordon. The year before that was Bijan, Ken Walker, Najee, and then Jonathan Taylor won it 2 years in a row. So he's in a class with some guys that work in the NFL that win that award. And I think when you look at his sophomore year, the year prior, and how unbelievably incredible he was and what he achieved and his stats from that year, I think you can forget 2024 and say, yeah, maybe, worst run block O-line, bit banged up. We'll draw a little line through that. It's still a good year, just not up to his standard. And we'll take some of this tape from the year prior and we'll roll with that. And I think if you do that, you're going to absolutely love this guy and think he's an absolute beast.
Yeah, so if you take the tape as a whole, I thought he was a very powerful, explosive runner who had really good contact balance, soft hands, really good route runner, fine in the passing game, really good ball security as well. But the one thing I found was that I feel like he delays decisions. Sometimes it's like there are gaps that he can sort of like go through, and he's just not. So he's not 100% confident on that. Struggled against stack boxes. That's something that has been a problem for him. Pass protection is okay, but I feel like it should be better for someone of his size. Yeah. Then, as you say, 2023 was great, and all the positives came out in 2023 and all the negatives came out in 2024. The only thing I would say, I just felt like he looked a bit slower in 24 than what he did in 23. And, there's many reasons for that. Injuries, obviously, and things like that. There are reasons behind that. He did have a poor O-line, as you said, and that is a problem. the concern is I just feel like teams are going to look at the overall package and they're going to come out and go, why was he slower from 23 to 24? And I don't think it's going to be favourable for him. That's the problem. I think he's a good running back. I think he's going to struggle. I think the end of day 2 is probably the best that you're talking about with him now because of the struggles that he had last year. And again, I kind of had him comped for Brian Robinson as another one. I just kind of felt like he was that sort of build and not maybe not as good as Brian Robinson, but all right. And yeah, I'm not sure with him. He's one where I watch it and I just go, there's so many good running backs this year. I think he might get lost in it all because I think that they're going to come out and go, what happened? And can he get it back?
Yeah, I think this guy's a bit closer to the size and the playing style of Derrick Henry that you spoke about earlier. You know, he very much likes to get the ball and run really hard and fast into the O-line. You know, I think that we see that a lot from Henry, and then eventually when you get through with one of them, when you've worn them out, you're off and you're gone. And we saw a lot of that in 2023. We'll just talk about his stats quickly. He had 285 carries as opposed to the 190 he had in 2024, and he had 1,732 yards of 21 touchdowns. He had 330 receiving yards as well. So I just don't think you can go, yeah, he turned awful overnight. There's got to be a reason, and he's got to be able to get back to that expectation. I think he, with the size, the speed, the style, like I say, like he's not afraid of contact, loves to run down people's throats. A winner of the Don't Walker Award. I think they all, you know, he's got big playability for me. So I think he's going to be a steal. I think he's going to go later than he should do. And whoever gets him is going to get an absolute steal if he plays up to the level I think he can. So he's in at number 7. I think before the season started, a lot of people had him at number 1 on their boards with the expectation of him having a similar season to what he did in 2023. So for him to drop this far down the list, I think definite steal later on in the draft. So fingers crossed he lives up to what I think he can do. Adam, the next player on our list at number 6 is Jonathan Sampson. Really, really impressive guy. SEC Offensive Player of the Year. You know, that is no easy thing to win with the amount of players and NFL style players and how we talk about the SEC. You know, really, really, really good, explosive, acceleration, vision, all great. Absolutely, really, really good. Adam, what you got on this guy? Because I know you're quite high on him as well, I believe. I thought he had an absolutely phenomenal season. We'll talk about that quickly. 5'11", 190 pounds, 20 years old, 1,491 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 143 receiving yards. Bit of a smaller guy, but didn't seem to bother him playing for Tennessee.
Yeah, I like Sampson. I think he looks really good. He's got a great burst, really good decision maker as well. That's one thing that a lot of people maybe don't say so much about him, but he's a really good decision maker. Brilliant footwork. He's got the long speed that you want, so that's great as well. Balance, agility, good in the receiving game. Just about the long speed. He's got a track background. He ran a 10:48 100 meters in high school, which is ridiculous. So yeah, he's got everything that you want for a running back that is going to excel in the receiving game as well. So that's what I like about him. He's got all of that. There are some issues. He's had some ball security issues. He's had 4 fumbles in 2024. He is a bit undersized, which obviously means that the pass protection is not fantastic. He's a bit inexperienced. He's only really been a 1-year sort of like full-on starter. But he reminds me of James Cook. And when James Cook first came out for the Bills, he was predominantly a receiving back. And it's only really this year that he's kind of been the bell cow main guy there. And even then, it's like, you've seen the likes of Ray Davis and Johnson as well get involved. But I think he just reminds me of James Cook when James Cook came out. And yeah, second round, I think, for Dylan Sampson. I think he's very, very good. Maybe I'm a little bit higher than what a lot of people are, but I do really like him. And I think he's got something that a lot of them don't. I think with running backs, you have to excel in one area. And I think he's really going to excel in the receiving game.
Yeah, I think when you look back at that Georgia team that had James Cook and Zamir White on it, Zamir White was the main back, and James Cook was the complementary back in that. And then you take their 2 NFL careers and you go, well, what's Zamir White doing and what's James Cook doing? Then, there's clear which one works and which one doesn't in terms of full-time back. Dylan Sampson, as I said, the 22 touchdowns that he scored was a Tennessee record. So that's another plus, another tick in his box. My worry is with Tennessee, they play in a spread formation. So you've got wide receivers touching one edge and the other edge. So he's only really, you've got 5 O linemen blocking 4. He's only really got to beat the linebacker and he's gone. So you don't know whether he's going to see that kind of defense when it comes to the NFL, which is a bit of a concern when evaluating them. But I can't take that overly into consideration because, again, we said this about players before, he can only do what he's asked to do in the team that he's on, and he did it very well. So the size does concern me. But the fact that he's proved that he can do it, I'm not concerned. My comp was Devin Singletary for him. I thought that, I know he's not had a great year at the Giants, but prior to that at the Bills and at Houston, he played very, very well. Similar size guy as well. So that was my comp for him, which I don't, I think yours is a bit higher in terms of what he can get up to. But yeah, this guy has potential to be really good in the NFL. It's just whether we can overcome those size issues that I have slight worries about, but such a good season. It was great to watch as well. Really, really good. I watched quite a bit of Tennessee as well. So really, really good to watch. Okay, number 5, we have Quinshon Judkins, the running back from Ohio State, 21 years old, 6 foot, 219 pounds. He, in 2024, had 1,060 yards, 14 touchdowns. He had 161 yards for 2 touchdowns. Prior to being at Ohio State, he was at Ole Miss. He had 1,000-yard seasons at Ole Miss. Went into the transfer portal. Chip Kelly wanted more of a run game at Ohio, so in come all the running backs to complement each other. I think he's another one that's really tough to evaluate because he played in a committee backfield. 1,000 yards is great in committee. So I think you've got to take the tape from Ole Miss as well for this guy, because I think there's a lot to see there that you didn't see at Ohio because of the fact he was playing with Henderson. But I think, great contact balance, aggressive. I've seen a lot of people say that weakness for him is blocking, but I saw him blocking the run game when he was on the field and completely annihilate people and look good. And for the guy that's not labeled as the catching back in the Ohio offense, I think he had really, really good hands as well. You've talked about ball security. I hope you've got it on your list that this guy's got great ball security, because only 3 fumbles in 800 touches, Adam. So a lot to like about this guy. Going to be, again, another one of those early down backs, big backs, goal line backs. running through north to south. So Adam, I'm really high on Judkins. I think he can be more than what he was at Ohio's. I think he can be a standalone back. We saw that at Ole Miss. Do you agree?
Yeah, I actually liked him more than what I thought I was going to. I think because you've got Trayvon Henderson for Ohio as well, it does create a limit to how much usage they're both getting. And you sort of, an initial look at it is very much like, oh, is that all he does? So I think that's the sort of, the quick glance, that's what you see. When you look at the tape throughout, I looked at him for Ohio State, but I did look at him for Ole Miss as well. And when you look at both, you see he's a really angry runner, but he's got really good balance. He runs through people. He's not like Cam Scatterbo running through people, but he will run through people. He's got burst. He's elusive. He's got good acceleration and speed. Amazing vision. That's something that I feel like he doesn't get. He sees everything, and that's very much something that you saw a lot more in the Ole Miss tape than you saw in the Ohio State tape, where he does have that vision. He's got, as you said, amazing ball security. I've got one fumble in 2 years is basically what I read. But yeah, he does everything that you want. And actually, when I looked at all of his, like the 2 years and the tape of him for 2 years, I actually preferred him to Henderson, and I actually felt like he's got more odds that he can offer than Henderson, because I do feel like he can do both things. Because he does have good hands. He can be in the receiving game. It's just that he wasn't used that way at Ohio State. But at Ole Miss, he was used that way, and he was really good at it. I think it's obvious that the tape looks a lot better for Ole Miss than it does for Ohio State because of the usage. But that's what happens when a team basically uses you as just the David Montgomery role and doesn't use you at all in the Jahmyr Gibbs role. Whereas at Ole Miss, he was used as both. When it comes to blocking, I think it's very much pass blocking. I'd say he's not good at. He needs to improve at that. And he is a bit of an upright runner. That's another thing where it's like he does need to sort of like get down a little bit more. But the reason for that, I think he just lacks a bit of lower body strength for his size. It does surprise me that he's as upright as he is. But there were very few weaknesses. I feel like he's a really, really good player. I've got him second round. I don't think anyone will take him first, but I think second round he'll be good. As a comp, if you take all of the tape together, I've got a more powerful Aaron Jones. But the one that I like the most, DeMarco Murray.
Oh, I used to love DeMarco Murray. So good. Good on both. Good on Cowboys and Eagles.
I kind of think he's got that about him where he can kind of do both, but because he's a bit of a bruiser. He's a bit more DeMarco Murray than he is Aaron Jones. So I kind of like that one a bit more.
Yeah, it's very rare. I think we keep saying about Ole Miss, but it's very rare to get a guy come in and straight off the bat have 1,000-yard seasons. His first season 1,567, his second season 1,158, then 1,060. So he's been over 1,000 yards 3 times. That's SEC and Big Ten. That is so impressive, and I'm unsure why people have got him lower than 5 on their list, because I've seen it quite a lot that he is down there when there's so much to like about him.
I just think it's the way he was used at Ohio State. He was just used as a bit of a bruiser. He would just sort of do the short yardage, but that's all people have seen.
Yeah, they used their running backs to win the championship, and it worked well.
Yeah.
I think what's really nice about them as well, when you hear both of them talking, none of them had an ego. For a guy that was the lead back in Ole Miss, and Ole Miss had were big favourites to get to the playoffs and be challenging in the playoffs in 2024. He went, I'm done with that. I'm doing something different. I'm going to Ohio State to be the backup. Essentially, he was being told, I'm going to be the backup to Henderson. And he didn't have any ego, and he was on the field at the same time as him. He blocked for him, and I just felt like they got on really, really well. And I think that's a big tick for anyone going into the NFL, because lots of them are committee backfields, and he's not going to go somewhere and be like, I'm the big show. I'm the man about town, which you can see he should be like that, but he's not. He's very, very complimentary of his teammates and playing in that committee backfield. So fair play to him. And it may have damaged his stock, but he won a championship, and he is immense. He's so good. I think a lot of people are going to comp him to a better. I think people will comp him to Montgomery just because of the way he was used. A better version of him, which isn't a bad thing. Again, it's not a. I think
it's a bit of an unfair comp though, because I just feel like he's much better in the passing game. He does have the ability, and Montgomery has never really been much for the passing game.
I know we haven't got to him yet, but I was listening to some guys talk about running backs the other day, and they said Travion Henderson was the two-seater sports car, that you want to be flying around town at all sorts of speeds, looking amazing. And they comped Judkins to like your sort of like a family car that's safe and will get you everywhere, will get you from A to B, and sort of like you can fit everybody in it. It's 5-seater, can get the whole team in and carry you for the long journeys and get you through. And I thought that was a really nice comp to say, you've got a flashy player and a guy that's just going to get you from A to B the best way he can and take the team with him. So it's a nice comp to have for the two of them. So yeah, I'm really, really impressed with him. I think it'd be good. Number 4, Caleb Johnson from the Iowa Hawkeyes, age 21. A lot of these running backs are very young. They're all at prime age to really excel in the NFL. 6 foot, 225 pounds, another big guy. 1,537 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns, 188 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Only really had one good year in college, and it was behind an Iowa O-line that was possibly one of the best O-lines in college last year. But that's nothing to take away from the fact he's got home run speed. He's good at eats contact well. Lots to love about this guy. I think he's such a high prospect on everyone's boards because of that 1 year. But does that affect you? When you're looking at players, do you look like at Quinshon Judkins and go 3 years of just fantastic running, and then Caleb Johnson 1 year fantastic running? Do you look at that when you're evaluating players, or is it just that the tape and what you saw in the tape and whether that will work in the NFL?
I think I tend to stick to the tape. Really, I think it's difficult. I mean, obviously, if you can do it over multiple years, then that's great. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's almost like with the guy who only does it for 1 year, then that's great. And if you can do it for more years, then that's even better, sort of thing. But there are, as I say, when it comes to running backs, there are problems where it's almost like there is just only a certain amount of usage that you're going to get out of these guys, and so you don't really want them doing loads. So someone who's only done it 1 year, yeah, okay, it could be a fluke, but I mean, it's probably unlikely that it's a fluke, because if it was a fluke, they wouldn't be doing it to getting the amount of yards, the amount of touchdowns that you're seeing through this list, the amount of guys that are just getting not just double-digit touchdowns, but 20+ touchdowns, and it's like, you don't get that if you're just fluking your way through a season. So I think that's the difference. But yeah, Caleb Johnson, I think he's, rock solid, beefy runner, angry runner, hits the gap really, really hard. Good stiff arm. Size and speed is sort of combination. He does have agility though. He has the balance. Everything, you name it, burst, acceleration. One thing that's really interesting with him, and although I haven't comped him to Derrick Henry, although he's not far off.
Not far off at all.
But this is a Derrick Henry type of thing. He gets better in games. In 2024, he was averaging 5.8 yards a carry in the fourth quarter, which basically means he's wearing down the defense. Is essentially what's happening here. So, yeah, I mean, just the speed, the size, and the velocity that he runs at, it's just taking the defenses out. That's the problem. I think he's got good speed. I don't think he has top end speed. I have to say, I don't think he's quite at that point. Again, another one whose pass protection is not great, but he's only done 1 year of real sort of like top work. So that's probably why. I think his lateral agility needs to improve. He could make cuts a bit quicker and do that. That's something that would help him. There's no real pass catching game. It doesn't really exist much apart from a few checkdowns and the odd swing route and stuff like that. So you kind of have to know what you're getting with him. So I think you have to understand that he just. I don't know if that's an Iowa thing or if that's just that he isn't much when it comes to pass catching. I'm not sure.
Iowa don't pass the ball.
Very well okay. That might have something to do with
it. They run the ball and rely heavily on having an incredible defense. They're also where all the incredible tight ends come from.
Okay. So I think he's second round. I don't think he's a first round pick. I think he's Derrick Henry is a comp. I came up with Tevin Coleman. And I feel like he's maybe a little bit more Tevin Coleman. One other thing, you've got him as 225 pounds. I've got him down as 225 pounds. His college actually had him as 213 pounds, and that's a big difference. So we're recording this just before the combine, so it'll be interesting to see what he comes out as and also what he plays as when he does play in the NFL. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure he's quite going to have the size of Derrick Henry.
I don't think that's going to affect him too much coming in at 213, 215. If that's the case, I don't think that running backs work with the speed he's got and the height. It's at 6 foot as well. It's perfect size and weight for a guy. And yeah, I'm not concerned if he is coming in a little bit lighter. It'd be if he was coming closer to 200, then I'd be going, maybe that is because the style of runner he is. I don't think he wants to be any lighter because he does like to take a bit of contact as well. So he's going to want to keep that muscle and that beef in there. But yeah, if you want to watch the tape, there's so many you can pick from. You could literally take every game from last year. Bar one, I think maybe he wasn't great against Nebraska, I think it was, but other than that, I think all the other games he was sort of over 100 yards in virtually every single game. So go back and watch the tape if you haven't watched any of him. There's a lot of people that have got are higher than me on this guy. I've got him slightly lower on my board because there's just that 1 year of pure running back ability. So, but lots of people have got him locked in at the number 3, I think, on their boards.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, and I can understand why people would have him at number 3. I think that he does possess a lot of the things that you want from a running back. So
yeah, well, we'll move on to our number 3 back, and that is Travion Henderson, the other running back from Ohio State, 22 years old, 5'10", 208 pounds. Last year, 1,016 yards, 10 touchdowns, 284 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. As I said, we had him on our list last year. I had him as my number 1 guy going into last year's draft at running back. Decided to go back because he had injuries problems the year prior, because before that he was classed as a blue chip player. Everyone thought he was in a similar caliber of by the time he was going to get drafted, we'd be talking about him like the likes of Gibbs and Bijan and that lot, and that was his projected sort of way to go. And he got injured and never really lived up to that, but managed to get healthy for this comeback season to win the championship, and had the complimentary back of Quinshon Judkins, who we've already talked about, which probably took away a lot of those runs that he could get injured on. But this is a guy, Adam, we spoke about the combine already. I would be buzzing to see what he does at the combine. I think he's going to be off the charts when it comes to things. Explosive. If you watch him in any game, explosive, fast, quick, stop-start. Any word you can use for someone like lightning quick ability, he's got it. What I do really like about him over Judkins, which we spoke about, not only is he good at catching the ball, he runs really good, crisp routes as well. I think he catches the ball in stride like a wide receiver, rather than waiting for the ball, catching it, and then running like we see from a lot of running backs. So I think he's more than just a running back that can catch the ball. I think he's actually got good wide receiver skills. Works well in a committee as well. And yeah, I think with the full year of health, I think he can get back up to that sort of blue chip player again. And I think, again, if he can get up to the standard I think he can, I think someone else is going to get another steal with this guy. I think he can play every down back. I think he can play that sort of Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs role once he gets to the NFL. I think he can play that type of football. Adam, what's your take on him?
I think you're right in respect of all the explosive playmaker comments. He's got acceleration. He's agile, brilliant when it comes to balance. He's got some really nice spin moves, actually, which a lot of running backs in this class might not have so much. Really good in the pass catching game. Really good pass blocker. That's something that a lot of people don't mention for him. Really good pass blocker. Ball security is great. No fumbles in 2 years. Brilliant. My concerns with him, I think his vision could be better. I think he doesn't necessarily pick the right gaps at times. You see it in the tape where there's a gap and he doesn't quite go for it. And to a certain degree, it doesn't matter because he's just good enough in order to be able to find another one. But you do see it where it's almost like, well, you could have just gone for that one. It was right there and you've missed it and you've sort of like gone somewhere else. So I do think his vision could improve. I'm not sold on him being a 3-down back. That's the concern for me. A lot of people are coming out and saying he's Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think he's Jahmyr Gibbs. Really, I don't.
I think it's probably maybe more. He's got the skill set of Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I wouldn't say he's Jahmyr Gibbs.
I think it's fair to come out and say that. I think the best way, because I'm not convinced he's a 3-down back, I think the best way you see him is that you see him for 12 plays in a game. And everyone is an explosive run. And I think he's Jahmyr Gibbs when David Montgomery's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's Jahmyr Gibbs when David Montgomery is injured. And I think that's the difference that you've got with this guy. I don't think he's a 3rd and 1 guy. I think I'm not saying that his durability is bad, but I don't feel like he's built in the way to deal with that. And so I think if you start putting him in them situations, there's a very good chance he's going to get injured. And so I just don't think he's that. I think like I said, I think he's Jahmyr Gibbs with David Montgomery as well, sort of thing, which is essentially the way they played, wasn't it, for Ohio State? So I think that makes sense. I've comped him as Ken Walker. I think the big problem with Ken Walker is that when you give him too much, he gets injured. And so I think that's the thing. Early 2nd round for me. I don't think he's going to be a 1st round pick just because he's a running back, but I do like him as an early 2nd round guy. And I think he's going to have a great NFL career.
Yeah, I think top end of the 2nd round. I don't think he should sneak into the 1st. I think he will be great. I was going to say something about them, but I completely forgot. I wouldn't have him running into the offensive line. No. I don't think that's where his skill set is. When you've got the explosive speed that he's got, he should be running on the outside around the guys and then just absolutely flying, which we saw on the tape. I personally would just bring in a bulldozer. Anybody doesn't need to be an elite back to just run into the offensive line and get 1 yard and save him for everything else. So I do agree with you on that. I wouldn't want him just charging full speed. You're not utilizing his skill set well there. So fully agree. And it's probably why he's not in the top 2 like the other 2 people are. We will take a look at the first one. At number 2 is Amarian Hampton from North Carolina Tar Heels. 6 foot, 220 pounds. Last year had 1,660 yards, 15 touchdowns, 373 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Well, this guy's definitely an every down back. He was the whole entire UNC offense in 2024, and that is a UNC offense that had no quarterback because their starting quarterback Max Johnson got injured at the start of the season. Their O-line was 100th when it comes to blocking, and this guy has managed to put up back-to-back 1,500 seasons and 15 touchdowns. I think in the ACC, the only other 2 people to do that were Delvin Cook and Travis Etienne. And also, which you're going to say, because we spoke about this, about all these guys, great pass protector as well. So this guy should definitely for me be in the 1st round. Really love the fact that he's NFL size, build, every down back, can carry an offense on his own when the team's not great, and good at blocking as well. What's there not to like about this guy, Adam?
Nothing. I've got no weaknesses for this guy. He's built in a lab, isn't he? Clearly, I mean, he is literally everything that you want based on size, speed, strength, vision, good in pass protection, 3 down back. He's shifty. He breaks tackles. He's great in the receiving game. He's an angry runner. He doesn't fumble the ball. I mean, we'll talk about someone else later after this, but there's more issues with him than there is with this one. I don't know what you say when it comes to any form of weakness, really. I think there are times when maybe his technique, and I mean, you're being really picky here when it comes to like pass protection technique, could improve. He's still really good at it. He's just not elite at it. But yeah, I mean, he has everything that you want. if he's not a first round pick, I don't know what we're doing, sort of thing. I've seen people compare him with Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs as some sort of like hybrid where like he's got the angry runner of Jacobs, but he's got the shiftiness of Mixon. Little bit of an older guy who I thought, David Johnson. That's kind of who I saw from him, and just sort of like, because he's kind of that size. David Johnson was a little bit bigger and just, but I mean, he's the right height, he's the right weight, he's the right everything. So, yeah.
If this
Why is he not number one?
Well, because the other guy at number one's done some special stuff. Is this not got LA Chargers written all over? Is this not got Jim Harbaugh written all over it? Would he not just love this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would love. Yeah, he would love it. I don't know if he does. I think it might have Denver written all over it because they pick before.
Yeah, 2 picks before.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. I'm not 100% sure where he ends up, but there's a lot of teams that need a running back, and he can do everything.
Yeah. I thought you might have, because I don't have any weaknesses listed for him at all. So,
like I said, the only thing is, I think his technique at pass protection could improve a little bit. I really do. I don't think it's
picking at straws, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It's absolutely picking it.
But he's the best, probably pass protector in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he is. There's really not a lot. I mean, it's just really difficult to find anything that's wrong with him, and I think with other guys, if you want to make a real sort of like quick, there's got this wrong with him or that wrong with him, you can go, oh, okay, he's a little bit small, or he's not quite as hot, he's not tall enough, or his pass protection isn't fantastic and he needs to improve in it. But yeah, I mean, the ball security is great, and there's just, I don't think there's any limitations to this guy.
I've got one weakness for him.
Okay, this should be a laugh. Go on.
He's named after Amarian, the singer from B2K. And
okay,
that is a fact.
I don't know if we can class that as a weakness for him. I don't think he had much choice in it, but you never know. You could go down that route.
A fun fact for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we move on to our number one?
Yeah.
Let's talk about him. A lot of people know this name already. A lot of people haven't heard of Amarian Hampton, which shocks me with everything we've said about him as well, and I banged on about him. But this is a guy that everybody's heard, probably that's doesn't watch college football. They've already heard this name. It's Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. He's 21. He's 5'9". He's 215 pounds. Last season, he tried to break the record. Got very close to it. 2,601 yards, 29 touchdowns, 138 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. Was the winner of the Maxwell Award, which is the best player. Almost, it's the second award down from sort of best offensive player. So it's the one down from sort of Heisman Trophy, if you like. So. Yeah, the last running back to win that was Derrick Henry. So it usually goes to a quarterback. I'm pretty sure the Maxwell Award does. So yeah, really, really impressive award to win. I'll let you talk about him first. I've got a few things down as well, but a lot to like about this guy.
Yeah, I think he's got, again, everything that you want. Elite contact balance, great size and strength. He's another one who's really good in pass protection, great in the receiving game. Lots of people obviously will have seen all the highlight reel clips that we've seen from the season of him. Footwork is superb. Wonderful vision. He literally sees everything that you need to see. His long speed is decent as well. And he's proven like how durable he is with the amount of workload that he's received at Boise State. So yeah, just another guy who's pretty much got everything. And I think the reason that most people don't know who Omarion Hampton is just because this guy is a highlight reel. You know, that is basically the reason behind it. There are a few concerns with him, but the highlights basically outweigh anyone saying that there are concerns. He's obviously been used a lot in college. You can't deny that. He is slightly undersized because he's only 5'9", and I mean he's 215, so he's not really that undersized when it comes to his weight. But you know, if you want, as we were saying about Hampton, he's like 220, so he is a little bit smaller. He's had 9 fumbles in 2 years, so ball security is a slight concern. But I think you're just going to get that because that's how he plays. I think it's just that's the type of plays that he makes, and I do feel like his power could be more. That's one thing where I just feel like it's not elite. It's probably what it is. It's incredibly good, but it's just not elite. So I think that's something. Obviously, he's a first round pick. I will be shocked if he doesn't go between 6 and 12 in the draft, which is basically the Raiders to the Cowboys. I would be. I think the Bears possibly at 10 is another team in that sort of range that could go for him. But I'll be very surprised if he doesn't go between them. My comp for him, it's very difficult, but I think Alvin Kamara is one that everyone comps with him. I think you could go down that route. I was thinking Kareem Hunt when he first came out for the Chiefs. I think he was a lot better than what a lot of people remember him for now. So I do like Kareem Hunt as a comp for him, but I would say that's the minimum you're going to get is Kareem Hunt, and I think if you get him on the right team and he is the offense, I think you get Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I think he's very different to both of them, but
Really?
yeah, because I think he's very short, but I think he's a very big back. He's got a real strong stiff arm, and I think the biggest thing you can take away from his tape is you've probably seen it. He runs into players, then bounces off of them,
Yeah,
and then he's gone. It's very, very odd. You watch it all the time. And I was like, is it because he's playing against lesser teams and they don't quite know how to, because he's smaller, like tackle him properly and bring him down because he has that good stiff arm. But no, he did it against Oregon. He did it against Oregon State. He did it against Penn State. You name it. He did it against everybody. And that ability to just run, bounce off of everybody, run again. I think he had 151 forced missed tackles, which is a record. And I'm not surprised because he had at least 3 missed tackles, forced missed tackles on every play that he played. Every run that he did, the people just didn't know how to bring him down. So yeah, the fact that he is small, he plays a lot bigger when he's running with it. And yeah, like I say, just bouncing around like a pinball and people couldn't bring him down. And like I say, it was against the bigger teams as well. He didn't have a single game last year that was under 100 yards, and he went over 200 yards in 5 games last year. The production in the passing game went down last year because they were really pushing for that record for him. Because the year prior, Me and Alex were talking about him before the season started. We liked him the year before this, and he was used a lot more in the passing game, and he was actually really, really good at it. I think I heard someone say that the year prior, he had 23% of the receiving yards for Boise State, which the only other players to do that from the running back position were CMC and Jahmyr Gibbs. So that's some good company to have when it comes to that in terms of receiving. So I think he's got really high receiving upside as well, which we didn't see in 2024's tape because, as I said, they were going for that record. So they just kept feeding him the ball over and over again to get the rushing yards. My comp on him was Maurice Jones-Drew.
Okay, yeah.
Who was, I think, shorter than him. I think he was, is he 5'8", 5'7", 5'8"? But, you know, that short, thick, strong, like, runner. And Maurice Jones-Drew was phenomenal at Jacksonville. So, yeah, I think it's mainly the height and the weight sort of set and the fact that he was such a good back in the NFL that I've kind of got to that comp, because I think Kamara and Hunt look a lot smaller and a lot more receiving backs rather than rushing backs, like type of rushing that Genty does. So yeah, that was my take on him. I do think you've got to worry about his size going into the NFL. Like I said, he did do it against the big teams. So he has proved he can do it in college against bigger teams. But do you worry at all about his size?
Just quickly, Alvin Kamara's 5'10" and 215 pounds.
Oh, okay, yeah, but I just feel like he doesn't look as big. He doesn't look anywhere near as big, and I don't think they play the same as well. That's what I mean. I think
no, yeah, I get that. I think it's a very difficult one. I think the size could be a concern. I think the height is more the issue than the actual weight. But I mean, you know, as I just said, Alvin Kamara is basically the same. You know, so I mean, he's worked out all right for him. I actually think I think Gentry's problem could be more whether or not he is where he lands. I think it's more about. I'm not saying that he needs to be the whole offense, but I think to see him at his best, he needs to be the whole offense. And I just don't know if you're gonna. Sometimes some of these guys, it's almost like they need the workload in order for them to sort of like for it to work. And like you say, he does come across, although he is the same weight as someone like Kamara, he does come across as sort of like more dense in weight and stronger and stuff like that. And maybe he needs to wear them down a little bit, and that helps him all the way through. And so he just keeps getting better and better. But I don't think it's a massive problem for him. It's just not ideal, obviously. And so, you know, we've seen many guys who have been good running backs who are under 6 foot. It's just not amazing. You know, I think if he was that, then obviously it would be even better, kind of thing. But I'm more concerned about who he's played against.
Do you think he lands at the Raiders, and do you think the Raiders is a good spot for him?
I think if the Raiders go for quarterback in free agency, he ends up at the Raiders. And no, I don't think it's a particularly great spot for him. Because I don't think the O-line's great. And I mean, it depends who they bring in at quarterback, obviously, but it kind of feels like with the Raiders, the problem is he's not going to be the offense wherever he goes. In an NFL team, he is not going to get the usage that he got at Boise State. So it's kind of only downhill in that respect. And I think it's a weird way of looking at it, but in a way, I worry that means that you're not going to get so much fantastic production all the time. Brock Bowers is going to want to see the ball all the time. They're going to bring in wide receivers. They're not going to use him all the time. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Cowboys?
I think he'd be good at the Cowboys. But again, you've got CeeDee Lamb there, who's going to expect to see a certain amount. You've got Dak, who throws the ball a lot. It's really difficult. I don't think that, like I said, I actually don't think there's anywhere that's going to fit that's going to be better than what you've already seen at Boise State. That's the problem. But I think the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys is probably better than the Raiders for fit, but I don't think either of them are great.
Wow. Best of luck to Genty in the I think he's already, for fantasy wise, I think he's already classed as a top 5 running back in Dynasty.
Yeah, but Bijan wasn't he? And you know,
good now. Well, that's the running backs. We've got wide receivers coming up next. Some interesting guys in there. I think, not as well-rounded in the depth of what we've just been through with the running backs, but I think there's some interesting picks at wide receiver. I think there's some diamonds in the rough a little bit later on that you could see get really good production value. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. And as always, keep with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.